Volga fireball attack. So here's an interesting little thing. When you fight Volga as an enemy, like as a boss, when he does his transformation attack, he fires out a fireball before he dives at you. And once Volga and the other once unplayable characters became playable, you were able to use all of the moves you see them do in the game. However, when you do Volga's final combo, which is the transformation attack, you can't, no matter what button you press and when, use the fireball attack that he does before spitting it out. I've never really seen anybody talk about this besides Warriors Dojo during their video that's the Volga showcase. But, I don't know, I'm sure other people have wondered this as well, aside from me. Presumably they probably got rid of it just because it would make the moves drag on for way too long. However, I feel like they could have included it as an optional thing to do, just extra button presses, and yeah, there's some more obscure mechanics in the game already in terms of movesets, and it's just really weird to see one thing that you can't do just completely left out like this. Impa is just a Dynasty Warriors character, so this is something that people with experience from that series have come to realize and agree with, which being that Impa is there just to represent the normal Dynasty Warriors series. Her weapons are totally original, being the Nagita and Begoron sword. Now, the Begoron sword, of course, is from, Ocarina of Time. That whole entire weapons line is named after the Giant's Knife and stuff, but they look and play nothing like the actual Begoron sword and stuff, so yeah, they just gave her new weapons because they couldn't really figure out what else to do with her, and just her design in general just kind of reflects a more original thing like that. And Impa's also the next character that you play as after Link himself, so this is kind of to introduce people who are new to the franchise, and it's also probably to help give the dev team some familiarity to be hey, this is how the normal base Dynasty Warriors series is just so you know. And I guess Volga also gives these vibes, but not as blatantly. Skull Kid added to Legends as a saving throw. So this is a personal observation, and I guess a theory if you could call it that, but I mentioned in the last layer how I thought it was obvious that Skull Kid would have been added for the Majora's Mask DLC, because who else would you add? And I'm sure a lot of other people felt that way too, so seeing that he wasn't added was pretty weird and was just reduced to cameos in Fierce Deity's moveset and a costume for Lana, but then once Legends came out, you can tell that they totally extra added him, being okay, we messed up there, we have to add Skull Kid, because he's not from Wind Waker, and he's not original Linkle is, so it's hey, look, Skull Kid is finally here, now go buy the game again, or for the first time if you haven't yet, because the first one came out on the Wii U, and yeah, the Lana stuff and the cameo and Fierce Deity Link's moveset is still there, which is weird to see, but hey, at least he's here, and I'm glad about that, because he's fucking awesome to play as. Lana's weapons are based off the Triforce, so this is probably something that I'll just admit isn't true or intentional at least, but this is just always a vibe that I had looking at her weapons, and I don't know, it'll probably be kind of hard to explain, but not so much their playstyle for all of them, at least sort of them, but it's mainly having to do with color scheme as well as the elements that her weapons are, because her weapons represent the three main elements that aren't light and dark. And just the color of the symbols for them and stuff gave me vibes of oh, this is kind of the Triforce. She's the unspiritual holder of it or whatever. And yeah, the Book of Sorcery, I guess because there isn't a green one for courage, this is yellow instead, so I don't know, I guess that maybe despite that the elements could say this is wisdom instead, because it's a tome again, you read off it and use magic, and the attacks are blue, the Triforce of Wisdom's color scheme, and then the spear, which has a blue water element symbol, again wisdom, however gameplay wise it gives you a lot more green, which is more the Triforce of courage stuff, and Link himself is known for being from the forest, usually, and of course, Link's main color scheme is green, and he is the Holder of the Triforce of Courage, and then so many gates like the least available and most obvious. Like it's red for the fire elemental, and you see a bunch of red come into play during it, and you're summoning bosses during it, so it's like red Triforce of Power. Raphaels Face. This is definitely the most straightforward, but also the most interesting one for the Slayer, as well as the last one. But what you see here right now is how Raphaels' face normally looks during the game, and that's probably not a surprise. You probably know better that, of course, he's always under the mask. They won't just go ahead and model his whole face. However, there's other textures that imply that at one point you could have seen his face and that he probably would have took it off, or at the very least you could have gotten like hints of it like almost coming off, because there's a bunch of unmapped textures for his texture plate that shows the details for his normal eyes and the rest of his hair and his ears and even the teeth and tongue. So yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I guess it's kind of sad that we couldn't see beautiful Bunny Boy's face in HD. Anyway, that does it for this layer. Next up is a similar one where we're talking about more cut content, but also deeper theories. So see you.